Hey, it's Dave. How you doing? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm playing a strat that I don't really get to play enough. Or at least I feel like I don't play it enough. It is a 2006 Deluxe V American Strat. And I modified it by putting in the Jason Lawler pickups, the Charlie Christian model. And I also had this, the wires done like the G and L, so one's a treble roll-off and the other's a bass roll-off. I feel like I need the bass roll-off more than the treble roll-off on these. I just pull the bass like halfway out and pickups sound really great. Anytime you're using gain. When you're playing clean, you can keep everything full on. It's got stainless steel frets. It's a nice playing guitar. It's in the honey blonde. You can kind of see it's like translucent. You can kind of see the wood grain underneath it. That's a nice guitar. The necks on these fenders are a little narrower than I like. They're about 1 5/8. I like 1 3/4, but it is what it is. So today I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some tone chasing, or I don't know if I would call it tone chasing, but like I see like, I've watched a lot of videos for guys on here, and you get guys like Tone King and all these people that claim to be like, they claim to be like, really up on the game of tone and what sounds good. And then when I hear them play, I'm always like, yeah, that doesn't sound good. And it reminds me of like, a lot of people talk about the 80s as being excess, the decade of excess. And, like as you got into the more hair bands, the gain kind of kept increasing, and more reverb, more gain. More reverb, more gain. It was just like a battle. And, it's funny because bands like, RANT, when you go back and listen to, like, some of that stuff, the gain wasn't crazy off the chart, but it might have been a little too much. I mean, it definitely wasn't like the Van Halen sound, which was a lot cleaner than people think it is. It's not so, gained out. People have commented to me that my gain, like I don't really like a lot of high gain. And, when I played in my band, The Big Angry, I had a dual rectifier, but I never had the gain dimed. I might have had it on 1 o'clock. I don't like to push the gain because I think there's too much compression that goes on. And so a lot of times when I listen to like a lot of bands, especially the newer metal bands, and I hear that overly compressed, distorted sound, or like you go see... you go see a band and it sounds like everyone's playing through bumblebees. It's like this buzzy little thing. And, when I ran a store, I used to have guys come in all the time, and they used to be like, wanted me to take a look at their pedal board where they could fit the decimator in, or any type of noise gate. And I'm like, well, before we put a noise gate on your board, let's find out why your board's making noise. It's almost kind of like medicine today. It's funny. I went to the doctor like a year and a half ago, and I was telling him my heart was starting to race a little bit, and I knew what it was. It was my thyroid, and I knew it was my thyroid because back in my bodybuilding days, I took some stuff that would have affected my thyroid, and so I know what it feels like. So I was like, it's my thyroid. They're like, oh, let's check your numbers. So they check my numbers. They can't find anything wrong with me, and they put me on some pill. Then they say, well, my cholesterol's a little high still on this pill, and I'm like, isn't this all from the same thing? Isn't this all because of my thyroid? No, we don't see any signs of that. No. We're just gonna. So they put me on Lipitor. So I took that, and I'm like, it just killed my stomach. It's awful. Anyway, so then they was like, yeah, it's still kind of high, and I'm like, did you check my thyroid again? So they checked it again, and they was like, well, it's a little high. It's a little out of the normal zone. So they put me on something. When they gave me that prescription, I stopped taking the Lipitor. I haven't told him yet, but unless he watches my videos, and then he's going to see. So I stopped taking it, and I feel 100 times better. I mean, it's like I don't get the palpitation. I mean, I don't get any of that anymore. It's like, that's all I knew it was going to be that medicine because I knew what the problem was. And, in today's medicine, they don't give a shit what the problem is. They only want to solve the symptoms because now that the government has gotten into healthcare, that they want to just see, oh, somebody has high blood pressure, get them on high blood, get those numbers down. Doesn't matter what's causing it. Don't figure out what's causing it. Just get those numbers down. It's become like, it's ridiculous. Anyways, it reminds me of what goes on in music for years when people would sit and come to me with their pedal boards and they would say, I need to get a noise gate because and a decimator because I'm having all this hum. And I'm like, what's causing all the hum? Is it a bad cable? Or is it that you have too high gains on top of one another? And maybe that's a little excessive. Maybe we can find something that has a lower noise floor. Maybe you could do a little research. Instead, they just want that buzzy, over-the-top sound, but they don't care what's causing the noise. It could be a bad cable. In fact, they may have a great sounding board, but you wouldn't know, and they don't want to. And they're like not interested in finding out. They read in the magazines in Guitar World or something that James Hetfield has a decimator on his board, and they're like, that's it. It's like, okay, that's what you need. It's the same people that are going out and asking me about buffers and they're playing EMG pickups. I'm like, yeah, you don't need a buffer. You're coming out low impedance out of the gate here. But anyways, but there's that sound that goes on. I don't know if it's because people just want more and more. It's like, oh, I love the sound of distortion. Give me more. It's like when you see I had a buddy of mine and he bought a Line 6 practice amp. At first he bought a Blues Junior, but I know the kid's he's a metalhead. I'm not saying he's not little. He's actually a big guy and he's a lot older than I am. But he loves metal. He bought this Blues Junior because he loved the way it looked, and he plugged it in. He's like, I can't get any distortion out of it. I'm like, do you have any idea about Fender amps or know what the hell you're doing? Go buy a Line 6 amp and just put it on Insane because that's what you want. Now he's been playing and practicing more and more. He says he doesn't even go to metal. He just stays on crunch. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're starting to listen. A lot of times people get into these whole thing with high output pickups, and then the crunch doesn't even sound good. Nothing sounds good, in my opinion. But anyways, I see like all these people chasing tone, and it's like, if they went back and listened to the actual records that they like or that they grew up on, you would find like, that these guys aren't using these high output pickups and they're not using these amps that have that diode clipping in it. That's another one of my favorite things. I know a guy and he always says to me, you use all those pedals. I don't even use pedals. I plug straight into the amp. Meanwhile, every amp he has is a diode clipping amp. I'm like, yeah, you don't need it because it's built into the amp, and your distortion is 10 times more. I mean, again, it sounds like a bumblebee where I'm playing. People criticize me because they think I play too clean. They're always like, oh, you don't like, I don't have enough sustain in my sound. It's like, which is another way of saying I don't have enough distortion for their taste. But anyways, I think that's a, when you go back, if you listen to those records that you like, you would find that the gain is not so over the top as much as you think, especially when you take out, if you take out one of the sides. If you look at like the biggest selling records, it's like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. These bands are not plugging into diode clipping amps. Angus uses a super lead and a super bass, and Jimmy Page was playing through all kinds of stuff, Supros and Fenders, and I just think even in like some of the heavier metal stuff, I think of like Judas Priest, and I can't think of a song as heavy as Rapid Fire, even in their later stuff when Halford was singing and his voice was up in that like ridiculous, shrill, non-musical sound that I just never liked. But it was like, but if you listen to Rapid Fire, that is like just the groove, the sound, everything about it is like, it's just a monster. You put that on 10 in your car and you're rocking. I'm very conscientious about tone and about what my rig sounds like. And it's totally not about excess. It's more about subtlety And one of the reasons why I went with those Lawler pickups was because I thought it would be like a nice warm thing to do, like a jazz guitar sound. And I can get that sound out of it. It's a great sound. You can watch a guy, there's a guitar player named Tim Lurch who's on YouTube, who's an amazing player, right out of the Ted Green school of playing. He's just awesome. And his tone is always fantastic. And, and a lot of times, and this is not a lie, tone is in the player's hands. If you look at my friend Mark Ignazi on Norm's Rare Guitars, Mark's a great sales guy. Mark's a great salesman because Mark's a great player. When he picks up the guitar and people hear the guitar the way he plays it, they're like, oh, I want that. I want that guitar because I want to sound like that. And that's what he's doing. It's, I'm not saying he's not a great salesman because I think he is, but I'm saying that's not the reason why he's selling so many guitars. It's because he knows this. And this is part of selling guitars. It's like if you can play, and he also has the knowledge. And I always say if you can teach somebody something when you're selling them, they'll feel, like that you're the guy to go to, and everybody wants a guy to go to. When I first came back to Boston, I went into a store and I was like, why are you selling that used Mexican Strat for so much? And the guy was like, oh, because that's a 50s reissue. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. He's like, oh, it's not? Let me look it up. It's a 60s reissue. I'm like, no, it ain't. It was unbelievable. Then I told him what it was, and I said, you're selling it for like $100 more than what it would cost new. And it was just unbelievable. But people don't know what the hell they got. And which also brings me to a complete other thing about pawn shops. The days of pawn shops are done. And I say that because, I went into one recently, and everything they were asking for was top dollar. And it's like, yeah, listen, buddy. You pawned this off some guy. I don't know what the guy looks like who owned it. I don't know how he took care of it. All I know is I see it in your store. You looked it up on the internet, and you put a price to it. Like, there's no value to that. I can go on Craigslist and buy it directly off of some guy that needs the money. So I see the pawn shop guitar whole thing is just being dead. They make their money off suckers that don't know that and will walk in. But it's like back in the day, like in the 90s, you could walk in. Even in the 80s, you could walk into a pawn shop and they wouldn't even know what the hell they had. They all have computers now. They all look on the internet. They all look on eBay. And, the problem is when they look on eBay or they look on Reverb, they're not looking at what it's sold for. They're looking what people are asking for. And that's not really fair. Because when you go on eBay, if you're looking up an amp and you see like there's an amp that's selling for $1,200, look at similar ones sold, and you'll see it doesn't even sell anywhere close to that. But that's just, that's like, and that's where the business is, and so that's like what pawn shops do. I have a gig tonight. I'm playing, I have a gig the next 3 nights, tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. Other than that, I've been enjoying some videos. I've been enjoying your videos, and I listen to a lot of the Howard Stern videos that are very funny on YouTube. The prank calls from Richard Christie. That's what you always hear at the end. Somebody pointed it out, but yeah, that's Richard Christie from the Howard Stern Show. Richard Christie was actually the drummer of a band called Iced Earth, and now he works for Howard Stern, but he does these hilarious phone calls. And on YouTube, if you Google Community Cop, Richard Christie, you'll hear him do all those, all the things that I cut and pasted at the end of all my episodes now. Other than that, I'll probably do another video over the weekend. Very good.
You hit the nail right on the head with your comments, what you're saying today. You're right on target. You're right on the money, everything you said.